Hello everyone, good evening and welcome. Thank you everyone. So as usual, please bring your attention, as you already have, by bringing your whole presence in being part of the audience. So your attention is there. Most importantly, bring your intention that here the study of the mind and the mental factors is not usually a subject that your eyes or ears or five sense organs are that much utilized. It's rather using the very sixth mental consciousness itself about the various minds, various thoughts, emotions, and so on. So we rely on the teachings of the Buddha, the enlightened one, who only is enlightened enough to know the mind and various tricks the mind does, various troubles the mind creates. At the same time, amazing hidden talents the mind offers. So his teaching is there to awaken us the hidden treasures that our mind offers if we know how to handle our mind. So the subject here is therefore belong to Abhidharma, upper Abhidharma. Gompa Goma, we call it. Goma means it's higher in the sense it's domain of the mind that looks for the supreme science. It's more like super mundane subject rather than the mundane subject. It needs a mind that itself is intrigued by the very mind, and therefore wanted to rely and use the teachings of the Buddha, enlightened one, to show us, help us to negotiate tricky thoughts and feelings and emotions. So this is our fourth lesson. As usual, we will begin with our prayers, with our joined hands at the heart. Think of the prayer and doing of this teaching will have many benefits, not just temporarily tonight, but ultimately overall handling of your mind, and also spreading that ripple effect to others who too has a mind, and most of them haven't got a clue how crucial the understanding of their mind is. So therefore we can dedicate with altruistic motivation of our effort by remembering the infinite qualities of the compassion, the wisdom, and the power the teaching shows changes us in a way that we never thought we could change and grow. So with this in mind, we'll do the refuge, and for immeasurables. Oyenda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Aitere future enlightenment by virtue Ajive Handala Ashare Buddha Virtuous and Buddha Dhamma Sangha I refuge enlightenment by virtue Ajive Handala I share Buddha Virtuous and Buddha Dhamma Sangha I refuge enlightenment by virtue Ajive Handala I share Buddha Virtuous. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. According to the intelligence and predisposition of even the Yachanda Dharma Agrelo and common goals. So the more commonly shared Buddhist teachings called what lesser vehicle. This teaching is definitely lesser vehicle, but nevertheless subject itself is mind. So therefore it's upper Abhidharma, higher Abhidharma. And we're looking currently at the mind and various aspects of the mind. And so we looked at the primary mind, how important the mind is according to the Dhammapada in the first lesson. Then we looked at the 5 omnipresent mental factors as well as 5 object-determining mental factors in the second lesson. Last week, the third lesson, we looked at the 6 root afflictions. 6 root afflictions. So these are 6 afflicted mind, yeah? It's good to know what is afflicted mind, and if we become aware of an afflicted mind, that means mind itself is conditioned by something to the extent of losing its own clarity. It's like a white cloth that has been dirtied by a color or by dirt. Then you don't see the whiteness of the cloth. You see the dirtiness of the cloth. So those 6 root afflictions we discussed last week are adventitious nature. Adventitious meaning they are not nature of the cloth. They are coming in contact with the dirt, then the cloth became dirty. But still the dirt on the cloth are washable. So washability of the dirt is is likened to be what we call afflictive emotion. Afflictive emotions are what we call adventitious. They're temporary. So we should not be too upset by the existence of great desire and attachment or hatred or whatever. But as long as we can recognize them as afflicted, that means we have heard and understood the teachings, so that we do not lump ourselves with anger, or we don't lump the person who's angry at you. But you just see that's just a little bit of a spin, it just will get over quickly. So we need to know that all the afflictive emotions are temporary. Temporary doesn't mean it's just a couple of minutes, but some people have the habit. They go like their whole life. They don't have any intention to change. That's the problem. So they become habituated with the afflictive emotions. But knowing afflicted nature of the emotions, or afflicted emotions, like the six root afflictions, six root affliction we talked about, the desire is attachment, hatred, and arrogance, and the pride, arrogance, pride, one, and then doubt and the wrong views. These are the most people, when they have these, they don't know they have, because they become afflicted. They become intoxicated. Intoxicated person doesn't think he's intoxicated. He still want to drink. He says, "Can I have another drink?" He doesn't know he's already drunk. And so people on the counter are supposed to know they are drunk. There's no, you had too much to drink, now you can't have it anymore. We will put you in a taxi, you should go home. So those who are sober can tell who is drunk, who's not. But so we have to be sober enough to know that we have those signs of those root afflictions taking our mind. So that's just a brief revision of what we discussed last week. Now, today we're going to go over the 11 virtuous mental formations, mental functions. These virtuous mental functions are necessarily positive. So that shows that our mind can switch itself, tune itself into being positive. And when we are in one of these 11 virtuous mental functions in our mind, and then it does not coexist with opposite. So the negative mental thoughts or emotions are disallowed. So the virtues, they don't coexist. So when you give rise to positive thoughts, the negative thoughts does not manifest. So those who have the fitness to give rise to virtuous mental thoughts are usually behaviorally generous. They are physically very courteous towards people. They mind the language, and they respect others. They practice humility. They forgive the mistakes of others. They control their own negative emotions, and they will not judge others. And so they definitely is very restrained. And they are much more guided in doing the right thing, skillful acts. They can mediate people's problem. They don't think the problems are the people. They think the problems are temporary. We can help to solve them. They do not lump people with problem, because they are wholesome enough not to lump people with the afflictions. It's very, very wonderfully useful. Don't lump people with their temporal kind of fit, whatever they have. Because you have forgiving mind, you have understanding positive mind, But if the people are otherwise technically very educated, very mastered their subject, but they have no idea what kind of virtuous mental factors they need to give rise to or cultivate. So that's why all your other skills are futile if you don't have the ability to give rise to any of these wholesome mental factors. So tonight we're going to go over this list of 11 wholesome mental factors. So when we talk about wholesome mental factors, we need to be inwardly looking whether we have these any wholesome mental factors or not. In generally at our deposit, in our possession. I'm sure they are there. They're in the safe. They're tucked in the bottom of the box, I think. Then we just have to dig them out because all the unwholesome stuff is right on the surface takes over. Lots of positives are all hidden there, but suppressed by the other negativities. So we need to recruit them. First is faith. Faith here refers to whatever the object is, whether you believe in, you have faith in your mother's kindness, or faith that you've been loved, or it's very important to have this faith. If you have faith that you have been loved, you have been brought up kindly and generously with great care, and then that makes yourself very lucid. So this is called lucid faith, because it makes yourself clearly you can love your mother or someone. The object here, I'm giving the example of the mother. The faith could be in the Buddha. Faith could be in your friend, and in the Constitution and the goodness of the law and order. And so faith in your good karma. If you do something good, you don't worry about what other people do. It will. So having the faith in the law of cause and effect, because that your confidence, faith is such a positive. It actually makes you believe in something good, and like a farmer who sows the seed, he's throw all the seeds on the empty ground, but he has faith it will grow, and so of course for 3-4 months he wouldn't see a grain growing, but after that it will. He has to have faith. So we too have to have faith in the meditation. You have to have faith in the meditation. Even in the posture, you have to have faith in the posture. You have to have faith in your prayers. You have to have faith that your patience with somebody is good, because the opposite of faith is doubt. Remember, doubt is one of the 6 root afflictions. People are putting more on doubt. They say, why should I have patience? They never value my patience. They always sin. And then we get completely hijacked by doubt and no faith. So faith is whereby there's that kind of lucid faith. And lucid faith has to be followed by what we call aspirational faith. You've got to aspire the long-term benefit from the good patience you do. So you should you have to have faith in the aspiring the long-term benefit of the law of cause and effect. If your faith is very short kind of lived, then that's where you become doubt. People have lots of faith in the Dharma, or faith in the practice, or faith in their friends, or faith in the meditation, faith in their own kindness and generosity, faith in their own little, help they're doing. Then they will not be doubting in the middle of it. Why? They really aspire to have the lucid faith they had is followed by aspiring faith. And then the third faith is believing faith. You believe in it, and that's it. You could not be discouraged by other people. Some people call it unbreakable faith. Unbreakable faith, that yichepetapa in Tibetan means faith that earned by your own trust. You have already validated through your own practice of patience in the past. You realize, as a result of being patient in the hard time, you're starting to regain your friendship maybe more than you thought you were going to lose. You realize your patience will go into very thin, and you're almost wanting to turn your back to that person or that situation, but thank goodness you didn't. You believe in it, and the long term you realize how happy it is that you did not lose your faith, and you believe in the virtue of long-lasting faith. Faith should be long-lasting. Faith shouldn't be short sprint. So that's why in Buddhism we don't emphasize faith at the very beginning too much. We actually teach criticism, analysis, or examination. But once you have examined a bit, then you don't keep examining. You believe in it. You just believe in the Buddha and the Dharma, and your tolerance, your patience, and your prayer, and you've got to believe in that. So this wholesome mental factor. The danger of the faith is blind faith, Blind faith is not faith. Blind faith is just believing someone will help you, someone will guide you, someone will inspire you. It's not like that. Your own reconstitution of the mental transformation is going to change you and save you. It's not the savior from outside. Sure, we need friends and we need others to inspire. Often people trying their best, but that we shouldn't be, counting on faith in people. We should have faith in Dharma and karma and the law of causality. It's even in the faith in the Buddha is not really emphasized in Buddhism. Faith in the law of karma. If you have faith in the law of karma, it's because Buddha taught it, so therefore we have a double reason to believe in the Buddha. So otherwise, it doesn't mean Buddha will guide you when you die and bardo and that sort of faith. That's kind of culturally we talked about that, and it's also encouraged. It's just kind of attributes of having devotion. You can think that way, but main faith has to be really rational, logical, but at the same time very well tested. So when we talk about wholesome mental factor, this is first of the 11 wholesome factors. It is so wholesome that it will uproot your doubt. Doubt, last week we talked about, doubt is the 5th of the 6 root afflictions. Your doubt, people often doubting. They spend so much time doing something, all of a sudden they're discouraged, they turn back. The reason is they lack the faith. So therefore we need to overcome the doubt by the faith. And the benefit of doubt exists when you can remedy that with faith. But having doubt after doubt, you're consumed by the demon of doubt. They call demon of doubt in Tibetan. Faith is like the divine, and the doubt is like the demon. So who wanted to hold the hands of the devil? So that's why faith. So faith, of course, Buddhistically speaking, and faith in the teachings of the Buddha, like karma, like benefit of altruism, benefit of compassion, generosity. We need to believe in these things. Often people practice generosity or whatever, but then later on they hesitate. They say, oh no, I don't want to do this anymore. See, there again, the demon of doubt totally spoil everything that one has done. We have a saying, that one hand creates it, other hand erases it. Try to have a little bit of effort and then erase it. So we should not. Lots of people are doubting. They have been helping somebody or doing some good, and then they're doubting. All of a sudden, they just completely lost heart about that, and then the grief comes from that. Depression comes from doubt, and anxiety comes from that lack of faith. So therefore, the faith is a very important first of the 11 wholesome mental factors. Second is conscientiousness. Conscientiousness is mainly kind of conscious of your own thought and almost fear of bad consequences. If you think this way, if you did this way, it may harm my loved ones, it might upset my friends, and so therefore you have a lot of care and concern for others, as if and engaging in these kind of thoughts, brooding these kind of emotions, speaking about him like like this, thinking about him like this, is not really harmful. I feel ashamed to be having these thoughts, almost like a self-shame. Conscientiousness is self-shame. In Tibetan, ngotsa shepa. Ngotsa shepa means one who knows how his face burns. His face is already burning, so he's so conscious of the negative consequences in the future, and therefore knows how it's kind of a self-awareness and alertness to help the trained avoid harmful activity and negative consequences. So it's very kind of positive outlook that it almost foresees, oh, what will I get if I did this? It always thinks of the consequences, because it almost can tell what will be the consequences like, because consequences are very much similar to the cause they themselves creating. So what is conscientiousness? Is taking action to change one's conduct in order to prevent harm and disparage and embarrassment in the future. And it shields oneself from thinking or saying, doing things that will that will have severe consequences. So conscientiousness is this conscientiousness is some kind of a heedfulness for the future. Some of the things that we list here, the 11 mental factors, they do overlap. That's why these are kind of they overlap, because all the mental factors have similar, like desires attachment become cause of anger. For instance, there is no independent anger. Anger doesn't come about like that. It has to have a desire, and it didn't get like what I want, or losing what one has. Therefore, anger comes. So they're all mental formations are interrelated. So when you know the interrelatedness of even the negative emotions, then you do not see that negative emotion as independently existing. Very good. They are dependently originated. It's not you alone. It's got many other things happening. And that's why Shantideva wrote a whole chapter on this conscientiousness. Third chapter, his whole book is on that. Nearly 150 verses. If it wasn't such an important mental factor, he wouldn't write so long, on that. So of course here in Asanga's upper Abhidharma, he mainly lists these. If you look at the actual Abhidharma, it's only a list of these 51 mental factors, hardly much mentioned. Then the rest of the Buddha scriptures and texts and commentary gives, like Shantideva wrote, huge on the importance of conscientiousness in order to guard the altruism. How to be conscious to guard one's altruism. So therefore one physically, verbally, mentally always see, should I do this? Should I say this? Should I not do this? When one asks oneself, that's the conscience. Because your intelligent one is always sitting in there, and you need to be consulted. So the intelligence comes from self-consultation. That is thinking, reflecting. Should I say this? Should I do this? Should I react like this? Even if they prompted me this, should I say this? What would be the consequences? Where would it take me from this to where? That kind of conscientiousness is what makes you to pause for the cause. Conscientiousness which knows and restrains non-virtuous physical, verbal, and mental thoughts and conduct. Conscientiousness which knows, restrains any of the three doors, and consciousness that which knows and trains positive for physical conduct. Conscientiousness which knows and trains positive verbal expression. conscientious, that which knows and trains the positive thoughts. So those who have consciousness, you can see they're usually slower to respond. If they blame you for slow, you still thank yourself for being slow. Most mistakes are not created by being slow, by trying to be so quick. So thinking that if one has suffered some severe consequences by one's unskillful behavior from the past, think of them, the shameful result and negative effect they have. Everybody has this, so you shouldn't feel bad about that. And therefore said, I don't want a repeat of such a childish behavior of that. And almost talking to yourself. And therefore, and not sort of, you become conscientious in the sense of not thinking, I'm better than him, look at me, I'm pure, I don't do this. Not that kind of arrogance we talked about in the last week's lessons. The wrong view, thinking I'm pure because I do this, he doesn't do this, I abstain from this. Not that kind of thing. So conscientious, even though you are observing certain rules or ways that are better than others, but still don't let that become cause your arrogance. That's the conscientious from virtue becoming cause of arrogance. So then your meritorious qualities are cultivated by conscientious habit and conduct of now, which requires self-restraint, self-control, isn't it? So your mind is controlling yourself, and you are not feeling somebody else is controlling your mind that is now well informed is consciously telling you. The mind is not lost. It is at its best when you're conscious. There's no room for carelessness. There's no room for heedlessness. There's no room for anger or others who will take over. So therefore, why we have to be learn conscientious? Because we are not perfect yet. If you're perfect, you don't have to do conscious. Because we are all born imperfect. By the way, everybody's born imperfect, completely flawed ones. They are deluded beings. All sentient beings have one thing in common: they're all deluded. So because you're deluded, it's good to be conscious. How less deluded can we become? And perfect people don't exist, Be conscious that. Perfect people don't exist. Perfect people must be living in moon or Mars. They don't live on this planet. They don't get a rebirth. Rebirth is caused by imperfect past. So therefore, don't be harsh on yourself or others, even if they're imperfect, if they're flawed. Be kind to them. So then you're conscious not to judge others. When you're judging others, your own little merit just gone out of the window, if you have any. When somebody's imperfect, which is quite common, you say, I used to be like this all the time. I'm not that different, really. Then you're conscious, See, not only we are able to restrain our own behavior, but when we are also passing judgment to others, So we have to be conscientious about others. So that brings us to the third wholesome mental factor, the being considerate to others. Te yopa in Tibetan. Te yopa. Te yopa means as you have a tax on you unless you are considerate to others. You will be taxed. You will have this heavy burden later if you don't consider it to others. So you have to be considerate to others as much as you want them to be considerate to you. Being considerate to others. It's a mental factor that functions to avoid inappropriate actions for reasons that concerns the well-being of others. So you do it. You do something so that others, the one who comes next or use the next user who will be using that, will find it easy to find. And that kind of considerateness, others. Those who are considerate of others will possess of a special responsibility in the sense of how heedful, so as to restrain from doing and things inappropriately now, even though they are not there. Because one's concern for the well-being of others will make us to think as if they are us. They are us, One restrain from speaking harshly about someone, to anybody really, Almost nobody likes someone speaking harsh about anybody, whether the subject they're talking about is their friend or not. So therefore, speaking harsh about negatively and critically to anybody is going to harm others. So therefore, I shouldn't voice my negativities like this. And you're considerate of others, so it's not voicing your delusion. You actually sort of restraining your delusions. The restraining your delusion is a consideration of others, because your delusion has not only bad effect to you, but has a spillage over others. So considerate of others sympathetically, that will prevent us from becoming an instrument of harm or spreading the harm to others. If possible, try to prevent it from spreading the harm to others. Because of considerate, you didn't say it. Not because you have no opinions. You have opinions, but what would it do to others? And because you're considerate to others, some people think that it will benefit other people. They think it will benefit other people. Poor thing, they're deluded, They think people should know. As a knowing that stuff will benefit anybody. Your own head is already muddled up, and anybody else needs to be muddled up on top of that. Some people say, no, I don't want to talk to him because he's enough stress. We don't want to tell that to him. Very, very considerate people do that. Not that we don't have some facts, or not that we don't have some information, not that we don't have opinions, but what would our opinion do to others? So therefore we don't voice our deluded opinions, because it will have severe consequences to someone who's already a little bit not stable. Considerate of others is as good as considerate as for one's own well-being and one's own future. So considerate to others is not come at an expense to us, but it is a virtuous, wholesome conduct that one has to be considerate of others. While these considerate of others or conscientiousness of yourself, these are all about your outer physical behavior. These are all mental function, mental formations. So we have to see them as mental formations. When you see the mind and the thoughts, the feelings, then you try to restrain that thought becoming words and deeds and thoughts. That is wholesome mental factors. Because you're minding the thought from causing any severe harm through your door of the body, door of speech, door of your mind. But a lot of people have that latter. They're good at restraining physically or verbally, but they're not good at restraining mentally. So they bottle up. And that's the problem. So they need to see the emptiness of the thoughts themselves. As most of you are meditators, we meditate to see all our thoughts are also not real. So don't think that's kind of a negative mental thoughts are real and permanent and independent existing. You don't think like that. So why it's mental formation? So that if you are really busy citing it as a mental formation, you're preventing it from outputting through your body or speech, but at the same time, don't output from mentally either. You know, a lot of people have problems, mental problems. You know, physically, verbally, they're very, very well mannered. You wouldn't believe. But when it comes to the mind, they think that's them, and they think that's their mind, and they think they are permanent. That's them. They are truly existing. No, your real understanding of wholesome mental factor of being considerate of other people, and being conscientious of yourself. Even these thoughts are not you, not yours. They are temporary. They are impermanent. They dependently existing. They do not inherently exist. You need to think that. You know, so there's lots of people are very, very well mannered outwardly. You wouldn't have heard anything they do harmful to people or say to people. But when it comes to managing their thoughts, they are really bottling up. They are suffocated by these very thoughts. So we have to be considerate to our own life, so that our kind of thought that we host and post does not harm us in the long run. Okay, so those three, and the fourth one is called devoid of desire and attachment, which means non-attachment. So non-attachments. So non-attachment and not desiring things. So in many ways, it's contentment, really. Contentment. You're not desiring anything because you have so many things you previously desired, and you got most of them. And if you have contentment, that's much more satisfactory than needing to desire many. So you do not desire, you do not get attached to things, you have contentment. Like contentment with your life, with your health. Even if your health isn't necessarily better than anybody else's, but average, you know. Even your health is average, have contentment. At least I have two legs to stand on. At least I can see with 2 eyes. At least I can listen, I can read and write. Unlike others who are completely profoundly, you know, and could blind for whole life, you know. Think like that. So be contented what you don't have and have, rather than wish I had this, wish I had that, wish my health wasn't like this, wish I could jump, wish I could run, wish I could fly. No. Ask the eagles how it's like to fly, you know. They look very hungry. Even you can fly, so what, you know? They all have to swoop down to snatch somebody else's life. What's so good about being able to fly? So don't always covet things you don't have, and rejoice what you have. That is non-attachment. Rejoice what you have, and don't think you've lost something. You know, rejoice that you don't have that one anymore. Very good. This is really Buddhist. Not just wholesome, but very awake, enlightening. You're not mourning and groaning what you lost anymore. You're just happy that you don't have that anymore. Mm-hmm. So now you have this non-attachment to things, yeah, to people, to places, to possessions, to positions. There's nothing you're longing and craving so much, except enlightenment, which also doesn't come if you're attached. Enlightenment is non-attachment, remember that. Enlightenment is non-attachment to nirvana and samsara. No attachment to nirvana, no aversion to samsara. So it's not attachment to nirvana and saying you think you've done it, you reached the summit type of thing. No. So you have reduction of discontentment. This is sign of reduction of discontentment. really, then there's no room for hatred. There's no room for anger. Discontentment is the cause of hatred. Desiring something, get that one you thought it will be going to be like this. Yes, it is like that for a while, then all of a sudden it doesn't. Then you get disappointed, then you get angry. Yeah, so contentment is just seeing how impermanent things as impermanent things. You don't have to desire impermanent things to be permanent, do you? All things are impermanent, written in the back or on the front. Maybe you should say, by the way, this is impermanent. Look at your fruit. In the summer, you buy fruit from bullies. If you don't eat it for the first 2 days, it's all impermanent. They'll attract bugs and flies, and they themselves become inedible. And only days ago they were $7 a kilo. Now the whole kilo is just for the garbage. You wouldn't believe how much people. We were doing this in the Tibetan Losar. They bring lots of food. They put lots of baskets of food. They look good and abundant and prosperous. But within a few days, they're all going off. So non-attachment doesn't mean you live in poverty, but you live in abundance. You live in abundance. Bhikshu in Buddhism, bhikshus are monastics who live in abundance of simplicity. They don't live in poverty. When they say poverty vow, it's definitely Judeo-Christian idea. We don't say that poverty vow in Buddhism. We call it vow of renunciation. Vow of, you decide not to have them. You decide not to need them, It's not that you couldn't afford it, so you just choose to live in a meager, in a very, very sort of frugal way. It's not like that. Buddha himself was very rich, but yet he felt so poor. He was so powerful, but still felt very powerless in that position. But when he gave up all of that and he lived in abundance of contentment and simplicity, and then he became enlightened. No wonder why non-attachment and discontentment is a wholesome mental factor. That means that the lack of discontentment with contentment means there's no sorrow. There's no frustration. There's no jealousy. There's no arrogance. There's no judgment. There's no doubt. You don't doubt your practice. You don't doubt what you do, because you don't doubt your prayers. You don't doubt your session. You don't doubt what you're doing. You just rejoice that you have what you have. You don't try to compare, I wish I had that, and this is not good enough, I wish I had. Not that kind of greediness, You don't need many deity yogas. You don't need many forms of practice. You just need one deity yoga of contentment. Deity of contentment. If there was one, I'm sure you received the empowerment. And that's what we're talking about. The deity of contentment is non-attachment and contentment. What does it mean? You have amazing, great happiness. You're contented with your mother. You're contented with your father. All previous discontentment towards them seems like so unliving, so death-like. Now you realize, even if they're not with you anymore, some of our situations like that, we don't have our parents with us, but we still feel so rejoicing that the kindness and the thing they did and things they were, we are so ever so thankful. And it makes you happy tomorrow onwards because you have contentment about your dad or mom or your childhood or your school or your country or your job or your life or your partner, your health or whatever it is. If you have one contentment, it just spills over everything. It just completely wipes you from being frustrated or angry or childish. You don't do that. You don't do all of the above because you have contentment. And your three doors are naturally covered, naturally restrained. Because they are very, very disciplined to be simple. They do what they can. They don't make bad comparison with others. I want to be like him. I want to be like him. Why I'm not like... No. You just rejoice what you can, and rejoice that you couldn't do some things. If you can't do, just rejoice that you don't have to try to do everything. Come on, my dear. Very good. Some people have to do 5 things well. If you do 2 things well, you should rejoice. I don't have to do 5 things well. I'm happy with doing 2 things well. Very good. Contentment is very practical, very wholesome. Why is the vow of simplicity so sacred? Why vow of simplicity vow? Decide to be contented with simplicity. Have just small, simple belongings, simple things, and not try to. It's so sacred. It's sacred. Most sacred vow is simplicity. Because you practice it, it will remedy the root affliction of desirous attachment. So you can see why we talk about wholesome mental factors and root afflictions. How the wholesome mental factors wipes out the root afflictions, one after another. Desire is reduced, and frustration is non-existent. All frustration is you not getting what you want. If you're contented, you decide to accept it. Contentment means acceptance. It's not a struggle. Contentment is not a struggle. It's a simple. See the futility of ownership and possessions and positions and hazardousness of that, and therefore decide to be simple. Vow of simplicity. Some of Buddhist nuns said that how their life changed. They said, they never have to worry what they should wear. It's very good. Because they're always covered in simple robes, blessed by the Buddha. They don't have to think of wearing to match these for that, doing these. So, because they have inner beauty. They're beautifully simple is most beautiful beauty. All the other things you wear to match this to that is looking for trouble. Simplicity, vow of simplicity. People who have this practice of contentment, usually very content. Very little complaint comes from such people. They never complain. They're never frustrated. They just know things will change anyway. So why try to make too much a challenge for oneself? Even you get it, it will be over again. So one just doesn't want to repeat too many mistakes. All suffering came from desire and attachment. And do we need to repeat again? No. So if you don't want to repeat the desire and attachment, you need to start practice contentment. And not this. Why is it so wholesome mental factors? Then you start seeing good in the things you have and you don't have. Previously, your perception of somebody was all projected. You don't see any good in them because you're so critical. When you're contented, you're not critical. You're accepting them the best they can be. You can't force them to do what they can't. They're trying their best. Believe that. And everyone is acceptable for you. For they are all sentient beings who have different grades of delusions. And you can accept them all. You have seen them so many places, and nothing really uniquely different. They're all same, poor thing. And they don't want to be like that, but they just are disabled by the lack of wholesome mental factors. See, you're so understanding. You accept. It's almost like you're already in nirvana. Because absence of sorrow, absence of anguish and anger and desire and craving, means contentment, non-attachment. Not just to positive things, even difficult ones, difficult life situations with people, you no longer have any ill will towards them. Non-attachment to objects of past anger. Remember we talked last week, the anger has 9 objects. You don't think about what they did to you, or they did to your loved ones, or whatever. You no longer dwell in the past because you're detached from those. You are contented to be simple and not dwell in the past. So it's called non-attachment. When we breathe in, we should breathe in non-attachment. We should breathe out attachment. We should breathe in contentment. We should breathe out discontentment. Not just generally speaking, specifically. If you're angry at someone or something, you just have to breathe out your discontentment, your unrealistic expectation. You're desiring him to be like that, she to be not say this. They're deluded by their own karma, poor thing. They just wish they weren't doing themselves either. You know, why you have to double the trouble? They themselves are looking for how to turn to contentment. You send kind thoughts toward them. It will help them. You know that if you have kind thoughts towards them, that is contentment. Doesn't matter what they do to you or to others. That's none of your business. But if you have kind thoughts towards them, that's the most practical one. That's the most thing you can do. And you are contented, at least from your side. You have the right attitude. That's contentment. You would believe that it will change for the better from here onwards. If I have this attitude of accepting him or her or them, and it will start changing. If we don't have challenging things, we don't grow at all. People don't grow in comfort. People grow in challenging situations, particularly if you have Dharma on one hand and challenging situation on the other hand. Then you say, this goes with that, this goes with that again. Oh, this goes also with this. Oh, Dharma goes with everything. There's nothing, there's nothing that Dharma doesn't apply. So, as long as I have Dharma, it will be fine. Very good. You don't have to take all the things, you just need Dharma. That's what Kunu Rinpoche says. If you have bodhicitta, it's enough. you just go with bodhicitta and you just make sure that you don't forget that, and then it's all fine. And this text doesn't list bodhicitta, but it does list the next one, number 5, lack of hatred. Lack of hatred, Shedang mepa, So absence of hatred, absence of all the other afflictions, absence of resentment, vindictiveness. And so that sounds to me like bodhicitta, loving kindness, compassion. Both loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta are not listed in this 11 mental factors. That probably shows this text fairly early, that Abhidharma is very, 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 very Theravada. But when you look at it, non-hatred means absence of hate. So what made the hate become absent? Must be loving kindness, must be compassion. It's a virtuous mental factor that's positive effect of non-attachment, positive effect of contentment. Yeah, see, now these are related. You can see the wholesome mental factors now related. You can't have one without the other. Once you give rise to a non-attachment and contentment, then you have that much lesser frustration and anger. And no wonder non-hatred. lack of hatred. Then even what the person did to you, in response to which you didn't develop hatred towards, you're thankful what they did to you, because they woke you up not to have hatred, but instead have loving kindness to them. So instead of resenting what they did to you, you're thankful that what they woke you up to do. So their challenging stuff that they did to you, actually you become more grateful that they made you to grow and unfold. The mind is free of ill will and hatred. It's conducive to give rise to loving kindness and compassion. All the positive emotions will now mushroom when there is no hatred, non-hatred. So that's why when we inhale non-hatred. Absence of hatred means loving kindness. Person who has no hatred attracts people, attracts wildlife, dogs. The person who has, even if they do small things, it benefits people enormously. People who have lots of hate, they don't help any. They have high skill in the field, but they don't help anyone. The energy is so toxic. People like His Holiness Dalai Lama or someone like him, wherever he goes, he radiates this energy. Just his name blesses them. This is what we're talking about. Goodness of everyone is able to abide in the state of tranquility and understanding. By the ambience of that person, people who have non-hatred, they radiate an energy of lack of hatred. He sees no one with hate. He doesn't speak words hatefully because he does not host and keep any hate in his mind. When necessary, he has tons of room for tolerance. Even if there's hardships at the moment, he knows these are past hatred. He himself inflicted pain on others. Therefore, he accepts them. His mental state is free of any animosity and aversion. He remains in that peaceful, tranquil, clear, manifest state of mind. The absence of such hate and anger allows the mind to be free of any negativities. Mind is totally vacant of negativities. That vacancy of non-hate, of hatred, is filled with love and understanding. And no wonder why it's wholesome mental factor. Lack of hatred means person will not resort to aggression or violence or vengeance or resentment. He will not think of such words even in his mind. So it's not just his lack of hatred, generally speaking. Even someone harms him physically, even he harms someone he loves and other person harms him, he still do not brood hatred because he did this to him. As he knows they are dependent on how you respond to de-escalate and how much you can help to utilize that very situation into something very productive. He has such charisma and knowledge to see the potentiality of others' hate become cause your non-hate. Otherwise, hate for hate, hate with hate doesn't mean nothing. One who's hate you, if you do not retaliate with hate, that's non-hate. Abuse with non-abuse. Criticism with non-criticism. Being able to accept that is a wholesome mental factor, knowing that other person's criticalness to you or to someone you love is not their making, is their delusion, completely hijacks their sanity. Because you see that, you get it. See, when you have positive mental factor of non-hatred, then even someone do aggressive does not instigate your hate, because you haven't got hate. You have the antithesis of it. You have an understanding of hate. How awful it looks when the person speaks. It shows he's full of the poison. These are all due to causes and conditions. He knows. So he says there's no benefit in retelling anger with anger, hatred with hatred. So it's one too many is enough. And because of that, he has room for patience and tolerance. He sees them as ill consequences of the person having no wholesome mental factor of lack of hatred. Therefore, he's completely dumbfounded. You, for goodness sake, is at least can be the one who can rescue that scenario from getting worse. That is the wholesomeness of it. Wholesomeness is what turns unwholesomeness into wholesome. Because everything is dependent. Everything mutually dependent. You don't become wholesome unless there's an unwholesome thing. What's the wholesome thing about you being patient on yourself in the cave? And how do we know you're a patient person and you're in the cave? Nobody can test your patience. The cave doesn't test you. Your patience should be tested in the middle of the street, middle of the real life situations. So wholesome mental factor. We need to when we meditate, we try to recruit that thought. We try to situate. When we recite Om Mani Padme Hum, we try to radiate the absence of ill will, but presence of goodwill. That's exactly what we're doing. That's why meditation is meditation avalokiteshvara, meditation avalokiteshvara. It's not meditation avalokiteshvara. Why meditate on a pretty face when you can practice loving kindness? As there's not enough pretty face in the world. Why visualize another face? So whole purpose of even avalokiteshvara is just a reminder for loving kindness. A reminder for lack of hatred, absence of hatred. So that's the fifth one. The sixth one is timuk mepa means absence of ignorance. So which in one way of saying, an absence of ignorance. So if you can make a practice, make yourself be devoid of ignorance, means you are in the wisdom, discerning reality. Non-ignorance is a mental state with a discriminating wisdom that remedies its direct opponent, ignorance. It's a pristine knowing mind with the clear concentration about the emptiness of things and self and labels. It sees all things. It knows that it's not real. It knows it's merely labeled, just merely labeled, token. It's just a token, The token is just a token. It's not a thing itself. You know the tokenness of things. Don't take it too literally. That's the non-ignorance. There's no confusion, there's no doubt about it, but everything is not, it appears, it will be impermanent, it will change, there's no self, there's no phenomena on the ultimate level, but in the conventional deluded world, people think this and that, but for the sake of conventional reality, but otherwise there is nothing whatsoever. There's no doubt about that, no confusion, there's no hesitation about that. There's amazing sense of confidence in knowing what things are. Ignorance refers to a mental state, ignorance refers to a mental state which is filled with incorrect and incomplete knowledge about this subject and object and reality. Ignorance is ignorance of what actually it is. Subjectively, the ignorant mind causes to have confusion, doubts, distraction, misunderstanding, whereas non-ignorant mind is one that remedies all the above, prevents them from occurring. Even if they occur, they become temporary, adventitious. Just like the light and darkness does not coexist, likewise ignorance and non-ignorance do not coexist. Non-ignorance of the lack of inherently existing self, non-ignorance of the lack of inherently existing thing what person did, non-ignorance of the lack of anything that is permanent, non-ignorance of the lack of anything that is real from its own side, completely helps you to know what it is. Because of that, there is no wrong view regarding things. There's always correct view. There's no aggression. Because if you know things, you don't need to use aggression. Only aggression comes when you're confused. Anger comes when you're confused. When you are aware, there's no room. It does not allow the aggression or craving or desire to be precipitated. Non-ignorance of what other person did by himself or did by... You're not ignorant he did by him. You know that it is had many, many other causes and conditions. There's so many other factors that the person was made to do by his past karma or habits or friends or others, whatever. Therefore, you do not lump and put the blame on him because you're not ignorant that it is dependently originated. You don't even have to invoke compassion when you have non-ignorance. When you're not ignorant, you don't have to bring even compassion, so for that matter, except to radiate compassion to the person, But when you know, you don't have doubt, you don't have distorted views, you don't have any sluggishness, and all of the other things. It is pure freedom from suffering. When the sun shines, it will illuminate clearly everything, relatively showing houses and peoples and birds and so on. But in reality, there's no house in the house. There's just bricks and there's tiles and there's many bricks stacked on top of another and many collarbones put over it called house. But otherwise, there's no house in the roof, there's no house in the wall, let alone yours. So even if your house goes in a big fire, you have contentment that everything is empty of inherent existence, and you don't have attachment, Of course, you have to be fairly realized to have no attachment to your family photos, they call it. Family. They always talk about family photos as the most valuable thing. What did they do before photograph came? They're just photos, I suppose. There's nothing really to get so attached to when you're not ignorant that they don't really exist at all from its own side. Non-ignorance prevents the mind from cultivating any form of sorrow, attachment, worries. It clearly sees all things and all phenomena as they are. There is no right and no wrong. It's all are just the way it is. It has no words to explain. It's inexpressibly like that. It is ultimately like that. It's always been like that. It's not someone made it and didn't make it. Objects and things doesn't solve problems. If you think they're real, they create problems. So, how is non-ignorance cultivated? Non-ignorance cultivated from listening to Dharma, reflecting on the teachings, meditating, and try to recruit non-ignorance, try to reduce ignorance by the teachings, and then meditating on them, and you are then slowly learning to recruit the wholesome mental factors such as non-ignorance, non-attachment, non-hatred, and so on. And as a result of that, you are able to, you are really learning something. You're learning the wisdom, you're earning the merit, you are gaining the wisdom of non-attachment, non-hatred, non-anger, while you still remain in this conventional world that you do whatever you do, but there is no really hang-ups. There's nothing really too much to anything to you, because because you are able to see things for what they are. So we are talking about wisdom, wisdom. Non-ignorance is wisdom. So that's the sixth one. Non-wholesome mental factor. Seventh mental wholesome mental factor is joyous effort. Yeah. Yes. So joyous effort means the amazing positive stock of energy that you do not that you actually are delighted. You are delighted in doing things, helping things, giving things, and whatever it is conventionally necessary for the duration of your time or lifespan in the body or the time for the day or whatever. You are delighted to help, to give, to serve, and to do your prayers or study or your duty or your role or however you're helpful, If you need to rest, you're diligent to rest as well, by the way, You're not feeling bad when you're resting, You're very happy to rest and do nothing. It's very good. Very good. They're very liberated. Yogis are like that. They don't burden themselves to do so much when you can joyously lie down and snore the whole afternoon. Yes. Don't beat yourself up. Liberate yourself up. And then when you have to do something, you're just as diligent. You know how to spare your energy, Being kind to yourself and to others as well. Joyous effort appear as a form of enthusiasm, visible enthusiasm, but should be primarily piloted by joyfulness to serve and give and help. It's not interested in what is it in for you. What is it in there we can do for others is much more meritorious than there is anything for you. This amazing kind of shift of priority for the benefit of others, bodhicitta. We were talking about before, like the lack of hatred, and then motivated, then enthusiastic motivated to practice that diligently. Joyous effort can cause and fan your faith and devotion or all the other wholesome mental factors. Because you haven't heard about the wholesome mental factors, you don't know what joyous effort is, you wouldn't know what faith is. So faith will be fanned, non-attachment will be fanned, all of this will be energized by the joyous effort. The function of joyous effort as a virtuous mental factor are instigating virtue that is absent in you. Yeah, it instigates the virtue that is absent in you, maybe whatever that it is, and protecting any existing virtue that you already have, so prevent them from deterioration. There are four types of joyous effort. Huh? One that instigates the absent virtue that is absent, so try to recruit in a non-existing virtue. Protecting existing virtue from degeneration, second one. Third is enhancing and increasing existing virtues habit from becoming complacent, to prevent it from becoming complacent. People think, I've done my bit, I don't want to do it anymore. It's how can you do that? But bodhisattvas vow to do for 3 uncountable eons or more for the benefit of others. So one should never think that I've done enough and I don't want to do anything. And the fourth one is bringing out the fruition of your wholesome, positive activity, and how much we have been benefited as a ripple effect by Buddha's enthusiasm. How he, at the age of 29, didn't want to waste any more in the house, in the palace, and he instead exposed himself to the difficulty, a challenging nature of the elements in the out and the under the tree, and sat and meditate with great diligence. So we need to, if we can't be inspired by him, who can inspire us? The whole living lineage of the Buddha Dharma is because of the Buddha's diligence. Incredible diligence, not just in that last life, but all his lives as Bodhisattva and during 3 uncountable eons. We should really believe in that. Remember, faith is one of them. Faith is one of the wholesome mental factors. We should believe that definitely Buddha attained enlightenment through his diligence, and therefore not hesitate the diligence, and try to be inspired by that, and that even us, people say that even deluded people like us are sitting up and learning Dharma. This is definitely he's fanned by his positive vibration of energy. Because it's quite easy to sleep and do nothing, like pigs, only to be slaughtered. So easy to do nothing. So easy to not to keep a track of time, when is when, what do I have to do on Mondays, what do I have to do in the evenings, what do I have to do for them, for my children, for my family. All this, everybody's got diligence. It's not that lack diligence. You wouldn't believe how much diligence there is in everyone. It just question is whether that is just done for my this, my that, or for the benefit of others. Even though you have to do for a finite person, but doesn't have to be just thinking just for mine. May this effort, benefit others. When Buddha was sitting under the tree, he was dedicating with diligence. May this become a cause of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. His diligence was motivated by the type of intention that he was cultivated. Instead of thinking, I cannot do anything, I'm nobody, I'm not up to it, please, I cannot do this, this hurts my back, this is too early for me, I cannot do this culture is not proper for me. People always try to be a minimalist. That's not diligence, that's minimalist. Then become depressed because one didn't do it. Then become indolent. Then become even confused whether you should do anything at all or not. Then doubting whether I should do or not. Yeah, you wouldn't believe how all the root affliction just mushrooms when diligence is lacking. When diligence is cultivated, it can proof your afflictions. It's not that our world lack enthusiastic people. All the things we today enjoy, whether it's communication or technology, all this is a result of many, many enthusiastic, hard-working people who put their effort. Even mundane material things that we enjoy today. All the sealed road, amazing things. All this came from diligence. How easily we can go to places, how easily we can do things. But it's not a lack of diligence, but lack of what kind of diligence one has to see. They talk about 5 levels of diligence. Armored joyous effort. Armored joyous effort is analogous to an energetic performer who feels that his purpose and enthusiasm is armored by his goodwill and cause for which he is doing. So one needs to be armored, as if you are wearing armor, then you don't feel afraid. Yeah. So you're armored by your bodhicitta, armored by your goodwill, and selflessness and whatnot. And the second is joyous effort is non-discourageable joyous effort. It's a clear conscience in staying committed to do, not just say yes I will and not continue, but continue. Maintain the wholesome energy, and that cannot be discouraged by doubt or discouragement by other people. So easy people are good at discouraging each other. They say, I won't do it. And then one person also says, I won't do it. So easy to discourage each other. But one who has joyous effort, exactly opposite. Bodhisattvas are few, courageous are few. The opposite are many. So that's why wholesome mental factor of joyous effort is non-discourageable joyful. Not that there are no challenging things. There are many challenging things. Because there are challenging things, it does not discourage them. It's not a lack of challenging things that discourage people. It's challenging things, but does not discourage you. But instead you discover resilience and tenacity that cannot be intimidated by those by one's own self-deprecating or low self-esteem or negative comparison with other people, but one finds enthusiastic mind to stay very strong. One should know that sometimes my afflictions are strong, but other times they are weak. This shows even afflictions are impermanent and not real. So we should not be intimidated by afflictions. They can come, but we should keep the wholesome, joyous effort, not to be subside, but get stronger. Let the difficulty not stir, but stabilize. And third is the applied joyous effort, not the imaginary ones, but you have to apply them into your daily habits. Certain things that you really could put more effort to get it done without delaying, procrastinating. You just go and do it. Apply joyous effort. Yeah. They said that this is joyous effort is a wholesome mental factor, but you said yes, but did you apply them? So you've got to go and apply, do something about something that has been neglected. Just apply that in a positive initiative that is relentlessly dedicated in rendering assistant benefit to others that previously was not. You have delayed, you push aside, that's not my duty, it's not my role, I can't do this anymore. Always dismissing and avoiding. That's not diligence. That's not applied. That's disengaged. So applied diligence means one has to put additional time and effort and skill that previously was not applied. It has a positive effect of delighting yourself by seeing the result that was now visible, and also inspiring others who will otherwise be just going to be discouraged. Orange and mango tree do not produce any yield for many years. But they grow slowly, many years, and once they start yielding harvest, they produce every year. Like that. So we should not be looking for immediate, quick result. That kind of short-sightedness makes people very discouraged. Oh, why do I do this? There's no benefit. Oh, I don't feel rewarding. I don't feel appreciated. I don't feel belong to this. I don't feel rewarded. Why do I get? What do I get? This kind of, again, me interest. So of course that's not wholesome emotion. So the wholesome mental factor must be, it has to have a very positive, long-lasting, kind of a long-lasting benefit, even though it has many years, like the orange and mango, no fruit, but once it do grow, it produce. That's the applied diligence, applied joyous effort. Fourth one is insatiable joyous effort. Insatiable joyous effort is it's natural for most people that sometimes since they have engaged doing something, they become somewhat complacent. So instead of being complacent, one is actually insatiable. The more you do, the more it boosts your morale. And as a result of that, you don't show any sign of wear and tear. It doesn't mean you should push yourself like a donkey. You should still do some time out, and little bit of maybe change of roles, change of duties. It's good, quite natural. It's a good, healthy thing to do. But always. Each other can see that we are all there together, It seems to inspire each other, Inspire each other. Insatiable meaning it's just always there, doing something different, but doing it in a way. And the fifth one is irreversible joyous effort. Irreversible joyous effort, there's never a nagging feeling, I did this 10 years. There's no nagging afterwards. But almost like a irreversible. The benefit is just untarnishably there, and it continues to inspire others. Irreversible. So that's the seventh one. Joyous effort is a very big, wholesome mental factor, a positive mental factor. They say that one who has diligence will make it happen. It's the Drukpa Kunle, this one madman, 15th century madman. He told the Buddha image in Lhasa. He says, "Before you and we were equal, but now you got enlightened because of your diligence. I still stuck in samsara due to my laziness. Now it's my turn to prostrate to you." So he spoke to the statue like that. He didn't recite any tradition of prayer, but he just spontaneously spoke that. He said, "You are diligent, I'm lazy. Now it's my turn to honor you." Yes, so the only difference is how committed we are in our wholesome mental factors. If we are not skillful, of course our wholesome mental factor could go quickly. So we need to be steady and slowly and gently take little breaks. I think that's the whole idea. Mini breaks, we call it in meditation. Take mini breaks. You have barely started, you have mini breaks. Very good. You're having mini breaks, and then you start again. And so you don't try to push so hard until you have to give up in disarray. It's not like that. Eighth of the wholesome mental factor is the pliancy. This pliancy is the kind of refined training. It's refined training, really. Pliancy is refined in the sense that it makes your body and mind very serviceable, very agreeable. For some reason, you have a very supple and very pliant and flexible mind. So much so that your joyous effort has made yourself effortless. So it's not that you have to twist your arm to make yourself do as a diligence. Joyous effort is not arm twisting. Joyous effort is effortless. So when there is this refinement in your energy, these are qualities induced by your growth and understanding and maturity. There is that kind of refinement and pliancy. Refined training prevents your body becoming fatigued and tired and exhausted, because where you do it, your energy is conserved, your motivation is mobilized, and it's not that you work hard, you work smart. So physical hardship is prevented because the way you do it with diligence. And there's no kind of nagging feeling deep in your mind, no resentment in yourself, and enhances the refined quality and energy that does not experience any sign of fatigue and tiredness and weariness, thinking I'm doing too much, others not doing, that kind of thing. If you're thinking what you're doing and what others not doing, that's not a sign of joyous effort. That's almost like you've been forced to do without your own free will. So it has to be very free will, not obligated, but doing it out of your own good heart, out of maturity, because otherwise it will start to hurt later. Then your mind is very focused, and you're not comparing what others do, what you don't do, that sort of thing. You know exactly what you have to do. Who cares what other people do or don't? Because they know what they're doing. This kind of maturity makes mind very stable and clear and sharp and able to concentrate on what you're doing. And then slowly you can see how refined it is. You feel so motivated. You feel so good that you did what you did. You don't feel resentment what you did, but instead you feel good what you did. The effect of the mental factor on the body is it's overcomes stiffness and rigidity and tiredness in your body. So that's why physical flexibility and agility. And because you're not overdoing things under the duress of something, you're doing it joyously, and your energy is fine, and it is not comes at a huge expense of your mind and the body, but comes with a lot of willingness. Where there's a will, there's a way, they call it. This mental suppleness removes the heaviness in the mind, such as doubt, worry, indecision, but filled with dedication, joy, and gratitude to be able to serve. It's called pleasure. Yeah, it's become pleasure. Mental suppleness allows the mind to clearly see the application of teachings in action. There is genuine tranquility and peace in the mind with no sorrow, not causing any afflictive emotion to register. So these are all induced by the suppleness, this refinement. Some people call it rapturous feeling. There's a lot of joy. Yeah, there's a lot of delight in the joy and lightness. Must be not far from enlightenment, because there's a lot of lightness in seeing things. So that's a refined physical action and verbal mental energy, refinement. Ninth is called heedfulness. Heedfulness is the ability to stay very present in recruiting any virtuous mental factor, and engages in the virtuous, wholesome action heedfully, guarding the mind, and therefore directing the body, speech, doing wholesome deeds and words and thoughts. Remaining heedful, like a guard who keeps an eye on guarding the door. Likewise, person heedful guards his door of the body, speech, and the mind. And one is able to stay very disassociate from negative things, but associate with positive things. So heedful to remain positive, wholesome, and heedful from becoming associated with negative things, influence, people, places, activities, and distracting things. All of a sudden you develop some interest, and that completely threw everything what you were doing. Not that kind of thing. Heedfulness knows, I'm about to lose my grip on what I'm doing, showing too much interest there. All of a sudden, what you were doing is gone out of the window because you were not heedful how your energy was meant to be directed. Because we got limited energy. If you try to put too many things, try to do too many things, then it becomes, you neither achieve this nor achieve that. In Tibetan, we have a saying, Pari chua me, tsuri lewa me, lewa le takche. This is a story of a nomad boy, Pari chua means he neither collected any cow dungs, nor he was able to keep the basket on his back. Even the belt that was carrying it was broken. So it's very important to reserve and conserve your energies from what you can do, what you're meant to do, and be realistic. And then you are heedful of your energy level, when you can do, how much you can do. You don't take too much on. So heedful doesn't mean greedily trying to do too much to impress others. No. You just be reasonable and do small things, but do them well. So you know your limit, your physical limit, your mental limit, and your other duties as well. Do small things. That's being able to be heedful, not to take on too much. But at the same time, not say, I can't do anything, then feel bad not doing anything. And so that you know exactly how to moderate your energy allocation. If one maintains the heedfulness to suppress an arising of certain inappropriate attentions, then one can prevent the mind from developing them even when the objects are nearby or instigations there. Even though you're provoked, you know exactly how not to become at the whim of these objects. Inappropriate attention or thoughts can cause delusion to arise by exaggerating the good and bad qualities of the object, even when the objects are not nearby. So if you're engaging in negative relation with some things or people far away, but your mind could be so inappropriately thinking of that, even from remote, you could be heedlessly engaging in negative thoughts about places and people or things, and so that shows how mindfulness to keep the attention focused on specific things rather than letting it be dissipated by anything or anywhere. So that's why heedfulness is a practice of safe thought practice. It's a really wholesome thought practice, heedful. Because if all the other wholesome thoughts are wholesome thought, it's because you have safe thought practice. They say practice safe thought. Meditation is all about practicing safe thought, There are lots of things that people say you should practice safe, but nobody says practice safe thought. So, to do it is good to be able to renounce or abstain from certain places, deeds, or objects, or association, thoughts. But those negative objects or deeds or thoughts we renounce should be replaced by some positive thoughts, positive objects. It just doesn't mean we should avoid the negative things as they truly exist negatively from their own side. So that's why when we take refuge, for instance, we take refuge in order to guard our thoughts and have safe thoughts. Refuge means safe thoughts. You take refuge in the Buddha not because Buddha put his holy hand and that stopped the rain falling on your head or something, not like that. It's not the external refuge. It's our inner safe thoughts practice. To practice compassion, to practice loving kindness, to practice contentment, to practice rejoicing, to practice enthusiasm. All these things are safe thought. These are refuge. Refuge isn't a prayer you say at the beginning. That's just a formality. Actual refuge is always staying to mind the thoughts, having wholesome thoughts. So refuge is not something you count. Traditionally, you count refuge, you count prostration. It's quite a cultural Buddhist thing to do. But real Buddhist practice should do this, the safe thought counting. Of course, the outer recitation of the refuge and physical prostration is quite impressive, really. Quite impressive. But what if it's hollow? What if it's only culturally doing outwardly, but have no actual thoughts? Refuge is self. So, refuge is a constant meditation. It's not just a prayer at the beginning. So when we recollect the qualities of the enlightened mind and the way the Buddha teaches and where we actually can hear him so well, we couldn't believe we are teachable. We thought we are not teachable. We're so deluded. And we realized the Buddha's teaching goes straight into our slumber of ignorance and wakes us from the sleep and teaches us in a way that we thought was not possible. That's exactly being in refuge. These positive objects, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and so on, persuade us to do things, to know things, to see, to feel. These 4 fundamental cornerstones of heedfulness practice. So much for heedfulness. Another chapter in Shantideva's work. And the 10th one is equanimity. Now this is a wholesome mental factor of equanimity. We usually say it in one of the 4 immeasurables, without attachment to the near ones and aversion to the other and the distant ones. Equanimity, what is equanimity? It's a positive mental factor which keeps the mind away from attachment to some things you like, aversion to others that you don't. So it's try to avoid you from becoming dull and agitated, because dullness is detachment and agitation is anger. In the meditation, the symptoms of this dullness and agitation is a result of desire and hatred. So when you have equanimity in meditation, you don't go dull, you don't sink in the slumber or drowsiness or sluggishness. You don't, because when you have great equanimity. Equanimity relates equanimity to feeling neutrality towards all things, neither being attached to some, nor becoming too distant from others. You don't develop too much of attachment and emotional longing and wanting and togetherness. If you put too much there, that's where all the suffering comes from. You expect something from them, and then they feel cornered, they feel stress, and mutually become stress. And there's only suffering. Equanimity means give me space. People say, give me some space. Yes, exactly. give everyone a space. Not put too much attachment, even to the best of friends. Even don't become so angry. Even someone really awful. Even give them a break. Come on. So equanimity is a wholesome mental factor, which is unbiased. Sees the futility of attachment, investing in one attachment. We were talking about need of non-attachment. We were talking about need of non-hatred. Yes. To achieve both of these, you have to have equanimity. It's a balanced state of mind that subsides all feelings by the dint of good meditation. When you have good meditation, your mind is so clear, you can see the futility of attachment and expectation to the loved ones. There's so much attachment, they could barely part for a day. If they're together, they're not always happy, they're always quarreling. So what's the point of it? Just they're longing to quarrel again. If the person you don't like has gone far away, you're still hating them from remote. Completely useless. The moment you told him, get out of my life, and he did, and then you're still hating him. So what's the point? Lots of people practicing remote hatred, remote attachment, and it's very, very unproductive and very, very volatile. All this restlessness, fidgetiness. One moment this, another moment this. One moment I want to do this, another moment I want to do this. It never could be focused to stay equilibrium, meditative equilibrium. They go tang nyum, Tibetan. Tang means let go, nyum means equal. If you let go, then it becomes square one. Tang means let go, both attachment and aversion. And then it becomes square one, just like before you were born. It's good. Before you were born, you had a bit residue from past, but you didn't have all of this stuff. So you become back to square one. Back to square one is nyom. Nyom is equilibrium. Because you let go the good, you can let go the bad, and all our criticism of somebody or attachment to somebody is because we couldn't let go. We just keep nagging and talking about him so many times. Poor man did one thing wrong and he's just still back. And he had enough. He committed suicide because people just wouldn't let him breathe. Give some equanimity. Give some equanimity. Non-attachment. It's back to square one, Last but not least, the 11th one is compassion, by the way. Compassion. Number tsewa mepa means actually non-violence. Number tsewa mepa means non-violence. So the 11th one is technically it's called non-violence, because non-violence is where you don't show any sign of aggression, you don't do anything harmful physically, verbally, mentally to the other. Why? Out of compassion. Not because you don't have those instincts. People do. People really want to do this. People want to harm them. People want to make them lose. People, you wouldn't believe how much the one side want to make the other lose. They're both interested to make the other lose. No. So here, what is compassion? It's an unbearable pain. Compassion is unbearable pain one experiences when one sees others suffer, and develop a strong empathy and yearning to help them to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. It's a non-violent mental factor which cannot bear to see and know others suffer. It just makes you feel worse than they are suffering. To see others suffer, you cannot enjoy your meal, or you cannot, because you are in that same. It is also a lack of intention to cause any harm to others, even those harm oneself. One has no wish to retaliate others. If somebody harms you, you out of compassion will not retaliate to them, because their harm to you is doubly harmful to them already. So why you need to do any more harm? So therefore, this kind of practice of even tolerance is largely act of compassion. So non-violence is patience. Non-violence is compassion. Non-violence is forgiveness. So don't think that this list of 11 wholesome mental factors is a small list. They're quite inclusive. They're quite inclusive. When you look at compassion, there's forgiveness there, there's patience there. Because of compassion, people practice patience. They don't want to practice patience just to prove that they're patient. No, they're practicing patient because they're compassionate to the one who is distressed, who's troubled, who had difficult time, and therefore you don't want to make it worse by retaliating. You rather tolerate the harm in order to exhaust purify your own karma, and as well as to purify, give them a little sigh of relief for not retaliating. If you don't retaliate, you wouldn't believe how much it teaches them. They find hope. They thought, then they start hesitating. When neither of them practice patience, then they think there's got a multitude of reasons to harm each other. And one stops with that kind of understanding out of compassion, which very few people do. That's why wholesome mental factors are so short supply. Because wholesome mental factor needs a lot of growth, a lot of wisdom, a lot of understanding, and all the other mental factors. If you don't have all the other wholesome mental factors, it's very difficult to develop non-violent mental factors. this mental factor is the antithesis of anger, of resentment, vindictiveness, hate, malice. When we go through the 22 secondary afflictive emotion, negative mental factors next week, then you will see how these wholesome mental factors counteract all of that. With good meditation, cause of compassion is understanding the psychology of suffering and understanding of suffering and its true cause of suffering. So you need to see the sentient beings who are struggling, who don't want to suffer, but they create just the very cause of it, and blindly and ignorantly and unconsciously. Now, if you have that understanding, then it's an understanding of the psychology of suffering and sentient being who is suffering. So compassion is not thinking, I'm better than him, I will not retaliate, I'm so good, I'm so bodhisattva-like, I practice compassion unlike him. Not like that. No. You're actually you're in the same shoes of the other who is suffering. And you see the psychology of suffering, how miserable they are without knowing how they arrived at. And that kind of understanding then empowers you not to suffer like them, but empowers you to bear their sufferings as it was yours. And therefore it does not go to cause the further suffering or exacerbate the suffering anymore, but try to give a breathing space to pause it, to stop the sufferings. At least halt the suffering from escalating. How driven the person is by the previous violent behavior, which never got detected and corrected. And so much habituation and addiction of the habit, poor thing. And so feel even more compassion that they don't have any remedy for that. They completely whirlpool, they're in a whirlpool of suffering. And they see them as your unrecognized child of yourself or your mother, past life mother, who is suffering due to our unskillfulness and their childishness. And so then you will have this amazing forbearance to the child, to the sentient being as a child of yourself. Not as someone who's trouble-making or problem to you or difficult person, but rather your unrecognized child or mother. You just came to regain your consciousness. And the suffering they have is truly empty of inherent existence. But then when they don't realize that they're perpetuating it, so therefore it's keep arising. But for you, there is no truly existing suffering, let alone sentient being who's problematic. There's only a child of yours that you haven't recognized. When you think like that, that is the non-violent mental factor. Because you would not retaliate the violence with the violence. And you meditate on the nature of suffering, which is, if understood, is cause of your compassion. And in reality, that very suffering itself is not truly existing. And your compassion is empty of inherent existence. If you want to go that far, you might say, no, I'm not thinking of emptiness of my compassion. So these are all handy 11 wholesome mental factors. So that's how we have time to reflect on this. But of course, these are all very, very well packed, 11 wholesome mental factors. According to the Abhidharma, these are not only to be identified as a mental factor, but we need to recruit it. When you have recruited them, then these will counteract the root afflictions, as well as the secondary afflictions, which we will come to next session. By the way, next session is next week, but next week is full moon. Full moon marks the central Dzogchen, which is the full moon of a miraculous day of the Buddhas showing miracles. So we will combine a little bit teaching on the topic as well as a short 16 Arat Puja. So next week. So we'll do that little bit of teaching for the first half, and then do a short 16-hour puja. Thank you very much, everyone. Oceano Padodezena Herenda Mahayana Dije Whatever Perera Hagra Meo Vivegas Delevas Trohoda Mahayana Dije Courage Manju Shinyo Azama Dabada Deliver Follow it all the Hezamba Asha Dege all the Mera Meda Hezala Body Jida Teba Eranaya Raza Bembo Medengre Frele Dodi Generation. Thank you, everyone.